A key concept that we need to embrace is uncertainty. Why uncertainty? Well, on a very basic level, certainty is a box, and uncertainty gives flows space to flow. So why is uncertainty hard? When we evolved in prehistoric times, we needed certainty as much as possible, because if you were chasing animals to catch them and eat them, and you were always uncertain what your chance is to catch an animal, you would do a lot of wrong choices, and in the end hungry and not pass your genes. So we needed a lot of certainty as much as possible in all areas related to survival. But since our life now needs more flows, and certainty destroys flows, we need to pull back on certainty a bit. And let's break this concept down and see how it works. When we evolved, we could divide all concepts, all experiences in two groups. The first group are single concepts that we can understand. And it was me chase animal, me kill it, me eat it, me understand all of this process. This is the first group. But then there was the second group that was like, what is lightning? And it went something like this. Lightning scary, me not know anything about it, others also don't, just scary, me avoid it. There was no mechanism in which something from the second group could go into the first group. There was no realistic mechanism for a Stone Age person to understand the actual cause of lightning and what it actually is. Because in order to understand lightning, you need to understand electricity. In order to understand electricity, you need to understand electrons, and it's just it's incomprehensible for a Stone Age person to understand all of this. So there is no way in which people could actually understand what lightning is scientifically and move it into the first group of things they understand. In this case, what was the natural biological reaction? It's not uncertainty, because uncertainty was not helpful for survival. Uncertainty doesn't give you any answers. Uncertainty is only helpful if you can get an answer later. If you can get an answer never in your lifetime, uncertainty doesn't help you, to just leave you with a confused lifetime. So uncertainty is very helpful for things that you do not understand now but will be able to understand in the future, and it is not helpful for the ones that you will not be able to understand. And since when we evolved, there were very few things that you could learn to understand in your lifetime, because all of the knowledge was already there with your tribe. And when you were brought up in this small tribe, all of the knowledge was getting to you. And let's say in the middle of your life, your intellectual journey was plateauing and just continuing slowly with your own experience, but there was nothing that you could be taught that you weren't already taught, because life was simple. You were taught which mushrooms to eat and which not to eat and stuff like this from the wisest people in the tribe. And there was it. There was no one to explain anything further, because the common body of knowledge of humanity and of a single tribe was growing extremely slowly, just from person to person. And before we had written language, we couldn't accumulate a lot of knowledge as a species. But the world now is completely different. There's no lack of knowledge. There's lack of the time and the motivation and the effort, and just for you the path to get to the knowledge, which means that our biology, which evolved when we couldn't really get to the knowledge, didn't need uncertainty, because uncertainty is only evolutionarily helpful if you can get to the certainty later. Otherwise, it's sometimes better evolutionarily to believe in something false like that, like a god like Zeus is throwing the lightnings down, than at just being confused and wasting mental power into not knowing what is going on. So people are not biologically evolved for uncertainty. This is a big problem, because in order to have real knowledge, you need uncertainty. Because how does knowledge come in our heads? In two ways. Either people tell us something, we believe it, and we take it for granted, and then we know it. But the problem is, it's not real intuitive knowledge because we didn't discover it ourselves. We didn't do the dot connecting ourselves. And if someone tells us the basics and lets us discover the connections, then it's the better type of learning. But this takes time for intuition to form. And what does this mean? In this time, you are uncertain. You don't really feel like you know how things work because no one told you how they work in detail. You have to discover it yourself. It is a slow process and it comes through uncertainty. This is why it's uncomfortable for most people, because we have evolved to avoid uncertainty, basically at almost any cost. So one of our biggest intellectual problems in today's world is that we run away from intellectual uncertainty. While all of the wise people of all ages were okay with uncertainty. The ancient Greeks told that the more you know, the more you don't know, the more you realize how much you don't know. They were fine with the uncertainty. There were always these special people that could get over this biological urge for certainty and be uncertain. And this eventually became the wisest people in all nations and ages. The good thing is that we suck in this, but we know we suck. So we can try to improve. We can try to have intellectual uncertainty. We can try to progress in this way. What is the first step to intellectual uncertainty? Remember in the previous series when we talked about the most important question that determines where you're in a box or a flow mode. And it was the question, how much do I care if I'm right? The truth is, to embrace intellectual uncertainty, you need flows. If you have flows, you will not care if you're right. And if you will not care if you're right, you will not care if you're uncertain. If you are in box mode, you will care if you're right. And if you care that you're right, you will not be happy when you are uncertain, and you will try to abandon the uncertainty for some certainty, even a potentially false one. And this is where flows and intellectual progress meet. People who have boxy thinking, they have a very hard time building intuition, not just because intuition is a flow thing, but because it is married to uncertainty. Before you have intuition, you have uncertainty. If you're certain about something, if you like set it in stone, intuition disappears, because intuition is about nuance, and when you set something in stone, you just lose the nuance. You need intuition to progress intellectually, and for intuition, you also need uncertainty, and intuition and uncertainty come from letting flows into your life, so you stop caring that much if you're right. I very much like the phrase strong beliefs loosely held, which means that you should passionately believe what you believe in, be aware and invest into your beliefs. But if someone shows you that you're wrong, or you yourself show that you're wrong, then you should be immediately ready to change your belief. It's good for the belief to be strong, because if it's not emotionally your beliefs, it's normal to be strong. There's nothing wrong with it, as long as, of course, your beliefs are not harmful to other people, do not reduce their long-term freedom, but your intuition will develop. Believing something for a while, even if it's wrong, has its intellectual benefits, because after you stop believing the wrong thing and start believing the right thing, you will know how everyone who believed the wrong thing, you will know how they feel. You will know how they think. So you will be able to have a good conversation with them. Not only in an attempt to persuade them to your point of view, but just everyone will feel heard in this conversation. Everyone will have a safe space. Everyone will be heard, which is the beginning of every cultural and social change, is for everyone to have space, to be heard, to not feel pressured into any idea. And if you know that you used to feel and think in a certain way, you will definitely be much more capable of understanding the other side. So the world is much more complex, but we have paths to knowledge. Now, it's beneficial to have uncertainty, unlike the ancient times where when you have uncertainty in the Stone Age, it was not helpful. Now it is helpful because it may become a better, more nuanced, more intuitive, closer to the truth type of certainty in the end if you had uncertainty in the journey. And the world, it's not only more complex, it's also safer. If before uncertainty could lead you into life-threatening situations, like if you were uncertain which mushrooms are safe to eat, it's definitely not a good thing. But in modern times, there are much less situations like this, so you should be fine with intellectual uncertainty. All of this is not new, but how about emotional uncertainty? Intellectual uncertainty is uncomfortable, but beneficial, as we saw, so once we get used to it, it's fine. How about emotional uncertainty? Why do we need emotional uncertainty? Well, the world and you supports two types of trust. There is intellectual trust and there is emotional trust. Intellectual trust is about knowledge and data and intellectual skills. Let's say that you intellectually trust your sysadmin to fix the problem that you caused on your computer. Emotional trust is about authenticity and vulnerability and sharing personal things and being emotionally supportive. For emotional trust, you don't need to intellectually agree on everything with the person that you trust emotionally. Let's say that you trust your grandmother emotionally because she would hug you and be nice to you, but you will not take her business advice because her business advice is 1940s business advice and it's not actually correct anymore. You trust your grandmother emotionally, but you trust your sysadmin intellectually. You trust that they will be able to fix your computer. This is what matters in this situation. You trust them emotionally, but you would not hug them. Sysadmins usually not very huggable. So remember this. It's very important to differentiate. Grandmothers, very huggable, not good as sysadmins. Sysadmins, very good as sysadmins, very unhuggable. So there is emotional trust and there is intellectual trust. A big problem with the differentiation is that people hear stories from people in whom they have emotional trust, like close friends, loved ones, relatives, family, crazy uncles. Because they have emotional trust and emotions are what drives us, we also extend this to intellectual trust, even though the people who we trust emotionally may not have any critical thinking and may be someone who you should definitely not trust intellectually. We have a filter for trust, let's say an incoming filter for all of the facts and stories and everything we hear. We believe some of this shit and we don't believe other of it. And the closer emotionally the people are to us, the more we believe, and we're taking this filter that is supposed to be the filter of intellectual trust, and instead we use emotional trust for this filter. And if something is in the form of a story, it bypasses a lot of our critical thinking because that's how we're wired. The story is a flow and it's very powerful. And it's very dangerous that we may hear a lot of stories from people that we have emotional trust in, and we may build a false narrative about the world. And then again, there's a lot of stories which are not false, but they are not the whole truth. Let's say all of these movies that are about some variation of the hero's journey, where someone, according to the classical rules of drama, he has intention and obstacle, goes through the obstacle and goes through this hero's journey path via the movie. And this may cause the perception in our heads that a lot of the things in life have the structure of the hero's journey. But in fact, life is incredibly messy and chaotic. Most people's hero's journeys stop before they start, and then they try again or not try, and it's all such a mess. Life lacks clarity. All of our educational materials, all of our art stories, they try to have some clarity, to drive some point home. In life, often there will be no point or many points. It will all be a mess. And since all of these stories create some identity of ours, let's say that we're a hero, that we act in a certain way, that we react to certain situations always like a hero, and it becomes our identity, which is some combination between our upbringing and experiences. And this identity, we really, really want to be certain in it. Because if we're certain in our identity, we are calm, we feel at peace, we are in our comfort zone. But the problem with this structure is that it does not support growth. If we have an identity, we are happy with it, then we cannot change it. There's no driving force to change our identity. But our identity should always evolve to be better. Even if we are happy and in our comfort zone, we can do more for ourselves, our loved ones, and the world. So exploring, changing, and improving our identity is the path of our lives. And what do we need in order to change our identity for the better? We need emotional uncertainty. We need to be uncertain about who we are, because if we're certain, we will not grow. Identity itself, it's something that is very stabilizing, but sometimes you don't need stability, you need growth, and you should balance the two. Since our biology prioritizes stability a lot, because it helps us pass our genes and helps us not get killed in the Stone Age, we tend to prioritize stability over growth. But the current world is much safer, but also it's very dynamic. So we need a lot of growth and a lot of change and a lot of adaptation. Adaptation is very key to the fast changing modern world. So in order to do this, we should support changing our identity. We should support expanding our identity with the idea that we can be anything. We can do anything that is on the better side of humanity. There was this movie, Divergent, and I remember very well one line from it. It was about kind of a dystopian society in the future. Everyone gets categorized in 4 directions in life. There were the brave ones, the smart ones, the supportive, loving ones, and some other. It was a bit like the Harry Potter with the head sorting, but in a dystopian way. And everyone believed that it was the best way for society. And so the brave ones believed that they were brave, but didn't believe that they were smart, didn't believe that they were kind. Everyone just believed in their shit. And this caused conflicts in the main protagonists. And one of the main protagonists who was outside of this system, he was like an illegal rebel outside of the system. He said, I can be smart and brave and whatever the fourth thing was. And I really remember this line. It seemed so obvious in the movie, in the structured dystopian future. It seemed very obvious there, but it's not so obvious in our life, and we really don't realize of the boxes we put ourselves in. It's not the sorting hat, it's not the whatever they used in Divergent to sort the people into the four categories. We sort ourselves. It's worse than that. We sort ourselves into some groups, into some identities. We don't have to do that. It's not helpful in any way. We don't need that much the stability that comes with it, because stability can be replaced by meaning. If you have true meaning in your life, if you have a direction, if you try to do something for your freedom, for the freedom of your loved ones, and for the world, you don't need the stability. Stability will come from motion, from the direction ahead. Like when you ride a bike and stability comes from motion, there's a certain aspect to this in life too. And in this case, identities will just get in your way, because the identity of yesterday will hold you back today. And the identity of today will hold you back because of the inertia for change that is universal to everyone's personality. So identities are boxes, and the flow that you can replace these boxes is emotion, uncertainty, and meaning and direction.